6:02 Verizon time. We have a lot to get to tonight. I hope we can get to all of it, but there is a lot of executive material, so let's get right into it. We may have to come in. We may have to come back in. There's just nothing we can do. Let's all just try to do our best to be respectful of each other and get through all the material we have to get through. So, Chandra, if you'll go ahead and read our Open Public Meetings Act statement.
On Thursday, January 14, 2021, notice of this meeting was mailed to the press and the Current of Egg Harbor Township. Notice was also delivered that day to the Egg Harbor Township Clerk and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall. Advertised instructions for this hybrid meeting were posted on our website and on social media on Friday, January 22nd, 2021.
May we have roll call, please?
Ms. Alabarda? Here. Mrs. Byrd? Mr. Della Barca?
Here.
Mr. Ireland?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Price is here.
Mrs. Sullivan? Here. Mrs. Salagi? Here. Mrs. Gilbert Floyd? Here. And Mr. Castellano.
Is here.
A motion to go into executive, Mr.
Oh,
Castellano?
forgot. Motion to go into executive. I'm trying to keep things moving so fast. Motion to go into executive, please.
Motion. Second. Mrs. Salagi and Mrs. Sullivan. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We were in executive session, and now we're back in open for our public portion of our January business meeting. So I want to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. First, I'm going to ask Ms. Anaya to read the Open Public Meetings Act statement, please.
On Thursday, January 14, 2021, notice of this meeting was mailed to the press and the Current of Egg Harbor Township. Notice was also delivered that day to the Egg Harbor Township Clerk and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall. Advertised instructions for this hybrid meeting were posted on our website and on social media on Friday, January 22nd, 2021.
May we have roll call, please?
Ms. Alabarda? Here. Mrs. Byrd is absent. Mr. Della Barca?
Here.
Mr. Ireland?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Price is here.
Mrs. Sullivan? Here. Mrs. Salagi? Here. Mrs. Gilbert Floyd? Here. And Mr. Castellano?
Here. Okay, thank you. We're going to stand for the flag salute. After the flag salute, I'm going to ask everyone to remain standing for a moment of silence for Mrs. B.B. Markman, who's a retired EHT educator who passed away. Thank you, everyone. So welcome again. It's nice to see an in-person crowd out to see us. Hope you'll bear with us. This is our hybrid meeting. As you'll see, there are some board members there, and public is not only in person, but also will be able to participate remotely. And before we start, we have not one, but two board member birthdays tonight. I want to acknowledge both Mr. Ireland and Mrs. Salagi. Both have birthdays today.
Thank you.
So happy birthday to both of them on their 39th birthday. Before I turn it, we don't have birthday cake, but there are some Girl Scout cookies, I understand, in the back. Before I turn it over to Dr. Gruccio, I just, want to again say welcome back. Thank you to students, teachers, and staff. This is a difficult time as we finish our first week and head into our second week. There are many mixed emotions out there. We all see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we know we have some rough days ahead. And I'm calling again for all of our stakeholders, everyone involved, let's please work together and get through this. What we have adopted is a hybrid system of learning, which takes into account the requirements not only of executive orders and all requirements that fall there, as well as the New Jersey Department of Education roadback plan, which public schools are subject to. And our plan, which we were required to submit, is a plan that tries to balance the two fundamental tasks we have in front of us. We want to make sure that students learn, learn not only academically, but socially and emotionally. But at the same time, we want to do our very best to keep everyone safe. Students, teachers, staff, their family, and their loved ones at home, because that's the nature of this. And so we're doing our best. The roadback plan that we have is a living, breathing document, which means we're constantly looking to make improvements to it, and that's what we'll do. So with that, I welcome you again, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Gruccio for her report.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Again, it is nice to see some folks in the audience as we're going to try to produce this hybrid meeting. So Mr. Santilli is going to assist me. This is the first time we've been able to present my superintendent's report, and I had asked him earlier, I said, how are we doing this with Lou and Phil up there? But I guess they're up there somewhere. So we'll get through this quickly. Hopefully they're able to follow. Good? Okay. All right. I did what you said. What? Turn it on. How about that? Okay, here we go. Okay, so again, I'll explain that in my superintendent's report. I try to highlight what's going on under our 3 district learning goals. So under student achievement, in the areas that cover literacy for all, STREAM, and social-emotional learning, what's going on in our schools right now is we're at the high school getting ready for our PSAT testing of our juniors. Our high school orchestra and 5th grade strings classes produced YouTube presentations over the holidays, and hopefully you were able to see them. They were quite impressive. The Pittsburgh Institute of Aeronautics presented information to our electrical engineering students at the high school on STEM and robotics. Our mock trial team at the high school are county champions. Our high school thespian club, Troop 3993, was very successful at the 2021, that's supposed to be festival. They won 15 awards and scored some of the highest scores at the festival. So very impressive, and thank you, Mrs. Nancy Portnoy, for all that you do for our students. Mindfulness is occurring throughout the district, and some of our teachers are providing brain breaks, which is very helpful for the students. In our gifted and talented classes, we had aviation project at Swift and a spelling bee at Miller School. We had some champions at the World Masters Challenge at Miller School as well. We just received that information. I'm very proud of our students. And our winter reading room is being offered through our media specialists, grades K to 3, and some free booked opportunities through Amazon have been shared, and this is all in the district newsletter. Under climate and culture, many Martin Luther King activities and lessons that occurred throughout the week. We're going to highlight one on the superintendent video. Our virtual talent show, they were able to produce that, which was kind of neat in the virtual world. No Name Calling Week is going on right now in our schools. Believer of the Month and staff stars and shout-outs at our middle school level. Hunt for Happiness at Swift, and Life Skills Month throughout the district. So these are things that fall under climate and culture, as some of them are awareness, some of them are recognition, and it's all great things for making our students and staff feeling good. Community Connections, our parent-teacher conferences for the middle schools are in place. Preschool parent meeting occurred last week. Our Aspire after-school program was featured in the hashtag After School New Jersey. Ms. Kristen Boyd, working her magic as she does for our students. Her program is recognized as being outstanding in the areas of academic enrichment activities. So we're very, very proud of that. High School Interact Club participated in sing-along and producing holiday cards for the residents at Summers Place. Our A-Lab alumnus and seniors spoke to our seniors at the high school, and we also had Mr. Brown, who's attended Davenport, speak to our students about Lego at the elementary level. And our virtual homework help is in place. Okay, our COVID-19 update. As we like to share, we do have a dashboard on our website, but as of date, January 13th to the 26th, our positive cases were 13 among staff, 36 students. And currently, we have folks in quarantine due to positive cases in close contact, because remember, contact tracing is a process that goes on here in the district 7 days a week. Trust me, I get texts at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday, letting me know that it's going on. So it happens. There's 32 staff in quarantine and 40 students at this time. Just along with the, we're in this hybrid situation, following the Road Back to School plan, knowing that administration is always thinking ahead and looking to get everyone back to school, but again, adhering to the executive order and Road Back to School that we stated, and Mr. Castellano stated, that we are following. So upcoming changes to the high school beginning February 8th. The high school will go from that 1 through 8 schedule back to their rotating block schedule. So the students would follow day 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I think this is going to be providing a little bit of relief regarding workload for the students, because, we've listened to parents. We've heard them say, it's a lot, 8 periods a day, particularly before the holiday break, 8 exams, and, in a day, and that's a lot. So getting the students back to having their rotating block schedule. They're not going to see their teachers every day, but that's part of the rotating block schedule. They're used to that, and there will be assistance with the transition there. And just so everyone knows that the pandemic response teams in the district, we have a district pandemic response team, and in each school has a pandemic response team. And we are holding a meeting this week to collaborate and talk about needs and ideas as we try to move forward through this road back to school. Okay? All right, and this month, January, is Board Recognition Month, and the board received the resolution, or copy of the resolution in board docs, and congratulations to our Board of Education, and a big thank you for all that you do as volunteers, as you serve as board members, and support our schools and the children of Egg Harbor Township. So the resolution is there. We had certificates made up. They're in order of how you're sitting, you can take your certificate and then pass them down. And for our board members here on the floor, I don't know how much leash I have here, but Mr. Price and Mrs. Salagi. So thank you for all that you do. And a little different this year, but we'll recognize you for your service. So he told me not to touch that. Okay, now the video. So here's a little visual what's going on. First time this year we're able to share this with you, and thank you, Mrs. Mullen, for all that you do in this busy time of the year. Okay, congratulations again. And as you can see, great things are happening in EHT, in our Egg Harbor Township School District, and we are hashtag EHT Pride. What happened? Oh, there we go. It's not fast enough. Okay, we're going to move on to a presentation, part of our budgeting process. And Mr. Raymond Dorso, our Supervisor of Special Education, has the floor now to share his presentation with you on special education.
All right, good evening, members of the board. Good evening, members of the board. Good evening, public. We're going to give you an overview of what we've been up to in the world of special education. Just a brief overview, a few slides, and we'll get started. So just a general overview so people can kind of get a scope of the amount of staff that we have working in our department. 141 special education teachers, 201 paraprofessionals, 25 CST members, 23 related service providers, 6 behaviorists, 10 secretaries, and 4 supervisors. The first thing we'll talk about is one of the things that we've done a little bit differently this year is restructure our supervisor responsibilities. And basically our intention here is to streamline what each supervisor is working on so they can focus more on specific areas. And I just want to highlight one specific point, and if you look at Ms. Sharbaugh Hunt's responsibility, one of her main focuses is on reading programs, cohesion, and articulation. We're going to touch upon that a little further in the presentation. One of the other main changes that we did was instead of having one supervisor be in charge of one middle school and the other middle school, we have one supervisor for both middle schools. Really, a lot of what we're doing is trying to streamline everything that we do. Student overview, we currently have 1,137 students receiving special education and related services, another 94 that receive speech-only services, and that's about 16.75% of our total student population. 57 students out of those numbers go to school out of district. A really interesting number is the number highlighted in red at the high school, and that's 36 of the students that we have that are out of district are at the high school level. And that's significant, and we're going to come back and talk about that also in a minute. Program overview, obviously we want to educate students in the least restrictive environment, and that begins in an in-class resource program. Then we go to pull-out setting, which we typically refer to as LRC, and that's a pull-out resource. And then we have self-contained program type, and in EHT we have 2 self-contained program types that we utilize. The first is preschool disabilities, and that's really our only option at the preschool level. Conversely, from K through 12, our only self-contained program type that we currently utilize is multiple disabilities. Now, what we're currently doing, CST members, our behaviorists, our teachers, we're currently looking at possibly restructuring that because unlike at the preschool level, there are different program types for self-contained classes. There's an autism program type, there's a learning and language disabled program type, there's a behaviorally disabled program type, and I think I got them all. So we're taking a close look at that to see if we shift, if that's going to better serve our students. Extending and modifying existing plans. So I looked back at previous year plans, and there was a focus in alignment with our district goals on literacy, and I think obviously anytime we're focusing on literacy, that's a good thing. The two programs that we're most recently focusing on were Phonics First program, which is as it says, a program that focuses on phonics, specifically structured literacy, and then also LLI, which is a program that focuses on comprehension and is through Fontes and Pinnell. The thing that we're taking a close look at in alignment with our Gen Ed kind of sequence is how we're intervening. And as we move further along the continuum in special education, we're getting more restrictive, and our hope is to have a more intensive intervention as we progress. So we recently established reading committees, and this is going to be the focus of that work, specifically looking at what type of intervention are we using for our pull-out resource classes and also our self-contained MD class. So basically, you know, if our students are getting, as a Gen Ed student in RTI, Phonics First and LLI, we would suspect and probably hope that the intervention in self-contained programming is more intensive. So that's what the purpose of our reading committees are. Another focus is our high school transition programming. And I'm going to circle back to one of the early slides when I referenced the 37 numbers out of district that are self-contained. This is interesting because our high school self-contained program is dynamic. I'd argue that it's has the potential to be as good as any program in the state. We have an outstanding setup. We have the bagel shop, the floral program, Eagle Enterprises, really dynamic stuff. So you would think that we're able to educate these students that are currently out as well as the out-of-district can. And I suspect that we'll be able to get there, but that's why one of our focus is reviewing our transition sequence, and part of that is having students begin to go out in the community and engage the community by having them go out and do community-based learning and structured learning experiences beginning at age 16. Additional areas of review for this year, we're looking at programming based on student need. Our CST members are currently going through and determining what students may need for next year. And again, just to emphasize, we're a large district, so we want to make sure that we're focusing on systems. Also, we're looking, as I noted before, self-contained program types, autism best practices, and as I mentioned before, out-of-district student placements. Obviously, as we've been educating our students throughout the last 2 years, it's been difficult, and we acknowledge that some of our students have struggled with this learning environment, specifically our students with the most significant needs. So to this end, in addition to our extended school year program, which parents review at their IEP meeting, we're also going to be collaborating with our Gen Ed programming initiatives pertaining to learning loss and delay. And then we're also proposing another 3-week additional program that will also take place over the summer after the ESY program. And roughly that's going to be about 4 days a week for 3 weeks. And depending upon the program of the student, will dictate how many hours a day. For 2022-23, our focus is going to be on new math intervention and also an articulated approach to social emotional learning. 23-24, we're looking at a focus on cross-content area curriculum map instruction and also infusing literacy into all content areas. And just to recap, for next school year, it will be focusing on the reading intervention program, the new transition sequence at the high school, and increasing inclusive opportunities. Thank you very much. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Dorso. And we have one more presentation, and that is required by the NJDOE. And Mr. Santilli will share with you our mid-year harassment, intimidation, and bullying report.
Just want to check if any board members have anything for Mr. Dorso. Sal Barter.
I just wanted to clarify the extra, I think it was 3 weeks of programming for special ed during the summer. Are those for, is that going to include the students that do not qualify for ESY?
Yes, that would include that student population, so that program will be for students currently in ICR setting and LRC as well. Go ahead.
I
was just, when you said you took, instead of having two supervisors, one supervisor at Fernwood and one at Alder, now there's just one supervisor who's monitoring both middle schools. I didn't say first, what was the, I guess, thought behind that?
Sure. The thought process there is just, we have two middle schools in the district, so we want to ensure that what we're doing in one middle school instructionally aligns with what we're doing in the other one. So there's no disconnect, so that our instructional minutes in special ed are the same, our, pedagogy is the same focus, everything that we do, it just makes sense that since it's secondary, middle school level learning, one person is kind of being the point person for that.
Okay. And so they would, in the caseload, they would, of course, would increase for that particular supervisor.
Yep, but we actually moved like a few things around. We kind of shifted a few different things to even everything out.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, good. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dorso.
Okay, Mr. Santilli, your turn.
Good evening, thank you. This is a brief update for our 2021 mid-year report for harassment, intimidation, and bullying, as well as SSDS information. You can see here in terms of the breakdown, the mid-year reporting is from September 1st until December 31st. It's broken down by school. There's also some historical data here. One thing that I want to point out is the simple fact that ultimately, because of the hybrid situation that we are currently in, and also the remote learning that's taken place, of course, we're not dealing with the level of behavior that we typically would see when students would be in person. That's reflected here with this historical data as well for 2019, 18, and 17. So just for transparency's sake, I wanted to point that out. We do have, at this time, two particular cases at the high school, one non-HIB and one HIB that's being reported at the mid-year. In addition, we typically will break this down for grade level analysis. And again, there's historical data there. What I like to point out quite often is when we have a particular HIB case, exactly how many students may be involved in a particular HIB. So for instance, it takes it and puts it in perspective in terms of our entire population, whether broken down by grade level or the entire district, and puts it into really a perspective of how many students are actually participating in behavior that would result in an HIB. And in this particular case, you can see the number of students here involved in terms of the offender and the victim. HIB case follow-up, one of the things that we work very hard on is, as the anti-bullying coordinator, I work closely with the ABSs, the anti-bullying specialists in the district, as well as other staff, administration. Ultimately, it doesn't just end after discipline, for instance, is provided. We are working very closely with victims, with aggressors, and there's also school-wide programs, as you can see all listed here, to be able to really just promote proper behavior. This is continuing even in this remote setting that we've been in regards to our character education program and Renaissance, as well as other programs throughout the course of the year. In addition to that, here are some more specific activities and trainings. School safety teams have continued to meet, even though that those meetings are taking place remotely. There also is HIB training for all staff. Part of that is also promoted through Public School Works and is required training to be completed. We also continue to have, this has been the second year in a row, for a joint summer training. I felt it was important to get our administration and our anti-bullying specialists together, along with our solicitor. And even this year, that still continued to happen this past summer, even though it had to be remote. In addition, you see some other things listed here, from HIB presentations to INRS mentoring programs to character education. So all very important for where we are, in addition to other newer initiatives which are listed at the bottom for see something, hear something, say something immediately, in addition to every hand together pursuing public health. And tonight, for board's purpose, the mid-year SSDS certification is also under new business. So you will see that listed, and this will be essentially submitted to the state after approval tonight to the state tomorrow. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santilli. Anybody, board members, go ahead, Mrs. Sullivan.
Mr. Santilli, do we have any websites that are left open that students can go on after the teachers are gone? Or does everything get shut down every day?
Can you clarify what you mean by left open, I guess?
Well, is there any way for students to get together, like in a classroom, that bullying can take place? Is there anything, because I know the teachers have to invite their students in. And then, is there anything left open that students can gather and that bullying could take place that way?
What I would say is that if you're referring to like a Google Meet,
Yeah.
typically, especially in the beginning of the year, through our teaching and learning guides, we try to work with staff to make sure that that doesn't occur. It very well could occur. I think in a perfect world, I'd like to tell you that no, it can't. There is a slight chance that something like that could occur. However, it is typically unlikely. Oftentimes what we have seen, especially in this particular environment, is things that may result from cyberbullying, group text, other types of social media tools that are out there, because I can stand here all night and list them all. And unfortunately, those are things that we oftentimes will be brought to our attention and we have to investigate. But we haven't had too many cases reported to us, actually none that I'm aware of that has risen to my level in regards to anything of our own internal tools being used in that nature.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, I think, so thank you, Mr. Santilli. And at this point, I'm very excited to hear from our student representatives. Looks like we have all three of our young people, Mr. Delabarca, Mr. Erie, as well as Gabby. I'm not sure who's younger, but we'll start out with Gabby and we'll go from there.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Ethan is very sorry he cannot be here today. He is currently defending our mock trial county championship at the county finals. First, I would like to say that although this year has been extremely difficult and far from normal, I really wanted to take time to really thank all of our teachers. They are navigating this situation with such grace and doing a fantastic job. Our winter sports are underway, and we could not be more excited to begin the winter season. Our winter athletes are ready to begin, and they will begin in February 1st. We wish you the best season ever. Mr. Heenan has been working extremely hard on the yearbook, requesting help from students that can send in any cool pictures. I would also like to congratulate our juniors for taking the PSATs today in school. Last week, many of our seniors also took the seal of bioliteracy virtually from home. We are so excited to see the results from these exams. Lastly, I wanted to take a moment to congratulate our band on their winter performance. Everyone did a fantastic job, and if anyone would like to see these performances, you can check out the district webpage where they have all been uploaded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabby. It's always great to see you, to hear from our reps, and we really wish you guys the best for this year. This is not a normal year, that's for certain. But we're all going to try to make the best of it. So thank you again. We are now going to move to our first public comment period, which is on agenda items only. And so we'll start with in-person first, and then we'll go to our phones. I just want to run through a few things. We're going to ask that all of our commenters please give their name and address. We're going to ask that comments please be addressed through me as the chair. We're going to ask that all comments or questions be asked first, and then we will, for those on the line, we will then hang up and we will do our best to address all of them. And just as a reminder, we We cannot discuss personnel or litigation. And should you have a very complicated question, it may be necessary for somebody to get back to you with the full detailed answer. So this is public comment on agenda items only, and we'll start with anyone who's here with us. Anyone? Okay, well, I'm sure we'll be talking a little later. We look forward to that. And do we have anyone on the line for agenda items?
We have to put the phone number up. We're ready to take calls at this time. While we wait, we did have one emailed in question by the deadline for public comment. Would you like me to entertain that first?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Was that for agenda items only?
It is not for agenda items only. You are absolutely correct. We will wait.
Yeah, we'll get to it, and we will certainly address it.
And I would just like the community to know that we are trying our brand new queuing system today. So you will not have to keep on calling. You will be answered after the third ring and put on queue and be on hold in the order of which you receive your call. So that's exciting news. It has now been live streaming for a minute. If you wanted to go ahead and call no agenda item calls at this time if you wish.
Okay, and that's fine. And so we'll get to that question and the email, and I'm sure others in our second comment period. And we'll go ahead into finance and operations. I'll first ask if the chair or administration has any comments on our finance and operations agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is Michael Price, Chair of the Finance and Operations Committee. I have nothing further to report tonight. We read it out at the last workshop meeting. It was quite a few items on there that we need to take a look at tonight and vote on. So maybe Sandra would have something where she would want to add, but I have nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. I would just like to highlight for the board a few changes between the last agenda on work session and this agenda. We did add to the bills list the first payment to Garden State Academy, as we are to pay for 6 months of the year. So we made the first payment on this bills list. We have an an application for the 21st Century Grant through IDEA spending to be able to do summer program for special ed enrichment over the summer through the Aspire program. We also added the preschool education agreement with Garden State Academy. The provider agreement is Department of Education's template, and that was reviewed by our solicitor. And the last update was for a professional development agreement for a professional development day on February 12th. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So first, I'm going to ask for a motion on 7.1 transfers.
So made.
Second?
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Alabarda,
Yes.
Mr. Della Barca,
Yes.
Mr. Ireland,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes?
Mrs. Salagi,
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd,
Yes.
and Mr. Castellano.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm now going to ask for a motion for 7.2 through 7.13.
Mr. Price, I'll make that motion.
Second?
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Was the second Mrs. Alabarda? Was
Yes.
Alabarda? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, roll call, please.
And Ms. Alabarda?
Yes.
Mr. Delabarka?
Yes.
Mr. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Solagi?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Yes.
And Mr. Castellano?
Yes. Okay, we're now going to move into curriculum, and I'll just ask the chair or administration if there's any additional comments for this week.
None for me, thank you.
No additional comments, thank you.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask for a motion on 8.1.
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion on curriculum? Seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Alabarda?
Yes.
Mr. Delabarka?
Yes.
Mr. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Solagi?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes. Okay, we're going to move into personnel, and I'm going to just ask Dr. Charlton if he has any comment for public session.
No additional updates, Mr. President. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am going to ask for a motion for 9.1 through 9.8.
So made.
Second.
Motion, and I think Mr. Ireland beat you to it. Is there any discussion on personnel? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Alabarda?
Yes.
Mr. Delabarka?
Yes.
Mr. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Price, yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Solagi?
Yes.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd? Mr. Castellano?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Gilbert Floyd, go ahead.
I was saying yes and abstain for 9.4.
Thank you. Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, communications, we have a new board calendar, and I'm going to call on Mr. Delabarka. We have several upcoming events with New Jersey school boards and Atlantic County school boards. He's behind the curtain there. He's behind door number 1, or he's behind the curtain. Where is he? Where is that young fella?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder, I mentioned last week that we do have a county school boards association meeting coming up on February 18th, a Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, and again, it will be virtual. You may have received a reminder from the state today. If not, you should be soon. The registration is open at New Jersey School Boards Association. And I believe the topic that night, again, is going to be how to support struggling learners. So that should be a good meeting. We had a County Leaders Association meeting yesterday on WebEx around the state. There were about 40-some county leaders present. I sent a summary of the meeting to the presidents and of all the locals in Atlantic County. And I copied our administrators and our lead here in the district. Basically, it was two board administrators talking about the upcoming budget and the whole process. And to really sum it all up is no one really knows what we're doing, and we're all going to have to do the best we can with what we have, because the state funding is certainly uncertain, the federal funding is uncertain, and all kinds of uncertainties. And of course, the two representatives, one was from Howell Township, which is a small district, and the other was from Newark, which is our state's largest district. And certainly it was interesting to hear the different ways that people budget and the different problems and concerns that they have. But all of us have our concerns. I know, Chandra, I don't know if you've received my email yet, but I just highlighted some of the things, and I'm sure you've covered all of them already, and we will be in our own budget process. But it seems that the biggest highlight I got out of the whole meeting, and all of us did, was the uncertainty of the budget process for the upcoming year. And we're going to have to just do the best we can, and we'll see where the state comes down later on in the year and what kind of funding we may get from the state. But the uncertainty of PPE, for example. Do we need more? Do we have enough? All those kind of discussions. The feeding of the students again this year. How open we're going to be, if we're going to be totally open or not, if we're still going to be in a hybrid situation. All that kind of planning is part of the budgeting process coming up. And it was interesting to hear these two different business administrators talk about their concerns, and all of us are going to be in this together. And I think the biggest point, and Pete, you've been making this all the entire time we've been living with this, is the collaboration between all of us. We all need to work together and have our heads together. And the point they did make was that all board members need to be totally aware of the entire budget process and all different aspects of the budgeting. And I know between Kim and Chandra, we get that here in a district, we get full background. But that's the biggest thing that I got out of the meeting yesterday, and I think it was a very good one. And I'm looking forward to our county meeting on February 18th. I hope to see you all there. And please let me take a minute to thank Kevin Ertebay tonight and Chandra for doing this whole virtual process for those of us who cannot attend the meeting. Even though sometimes I have some trouble hearing some of you, overall I'm getting the whole gist of the meeting and I understand what's going on. And I feel like I am there and I don't have to wear a mask. So thank you all, and thank you for everything you all do. Thanks, Pete, for giving the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Lou. Appreciate that. Yes, very timely subjects, and we appreciate that. We have an additional item of new business, which is 10.1. Do we need to get maybe a quick synopsis of that?
That is the mid-year certification. So basically, by the end of the month, we would certify the SSDS data, most of which was presented tonight, but that would take place just like we do for end-of-year SSDS data.
Very good. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion for 10.1.
Motion?
Second.
Is there any discussion on that item?
I'm sorry, I missed the second. It was second.
That was Ms. Floyd.
Thank you very much.
And seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Alabardo?
Yes.
Mr. Delabarka?
Yes.
Mr. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Solagi?
Could abstain.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Yes.
And Mr. Castellano?
Yes. Okay, so now we're going to go into public comment on any subject, and same rules apply that I read before, and we will start with our in-person first, and then we will go to our phones.
President of the EHTEA.
Make sure we have, we make sure we can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
There
Okay.
we go.
All right, I'll start all over. Kathy Wazen, President of the EHTEA. Good evening and Happy New Year, because I've not seen you since January 1. I'm here tonight with some of my EHT leadership to talk about our return to hybrid teaching and give you a little insight on how it's going. First, I want to stress that the EHTEA is in support of in-person learning and having our schools open. That was never an issue. I want to make that very clear. I realize that we are being trashed on Facebook and told we're lazy and just don't want to work. When in reality, the teachers in this district and the staff in this district has never worked harder. It's amazing to me that in the spring, we were being hailed as heroes in 2020 because of how much work we put into learning new technology and trying to make learning meaningful and effective for our students. Only only to be now being badmouthed all over the internet for doing what we're trying to do for the safety of the students as well as the staff. So I stand here tonight, and I'm not saying I want these schools closed and I want us to do remote learning. I stand here tonight because I want to be safe, and my members want to be safe in our buildings as we're doing the teaching that we love. As the president of the EHTA, I have voiced my concerns before, and the safety and well-being of the staff and students that attend our schools. I stand here tonight with that concern still, and I want to explain why. Our COVID numbers on the dashboard in November was 71, December 108, January 101. As you can see, we're going up, not down. Governor Murphy notified the public that the new strand of the virus is already in New Jersey. Last night on the news, they were telling everyone to double up and wear 2 masks for more protection. They are now saying cloth masks do not provide enough protection from the droplets that travel in the air. So the masks that the district handed out in the beginning of October to the staff are inadequate and shouldn't be used without wearing a second mask as well. So this brings me to a request that I'm putting out to the Board of Education. I'm requesting that every staff member, every teacher, is supplied with an N95 mask. I want to keep the schools open. You must keep our staff healthy and safe in order for that to happen. I am also calling on the Board of Education and the district to find a way to get the vaccine to our staff. I myself was online today to get to the Mega Center at the Convention Hall in Atlantic City. I was online for 2.5 hours only to be told at the last minute that there's no scheduled appointments. There's no way to get a vaccine. We should be able to arrange in Egg Harbor Township on-site administration of the vaccine because we are the largest school district in the county. My members ask me to fight for them. I'm asking you to fight for us. Get out there, make your contacts, put the pressure on, and get this done. Provide us with the protection we need. The vaccine, the PPE, the N95 masks, keeping protocol in place and carried out correctly, which still to this day doesn't always happen. Best intentions, but isn't always happening. I have pushed for remote learning to be available to the staff members that have extremely underlying conditions. I have pushed since the summer for this. When it was finally looked into by the administration, we were told that it is not possible to do it in a district this size without shutting down the district for 2 weeks, rearranging classes, and extending the school year to June 30th. There are many staff members in our district that come to work and risk their lives because we cannot provide them with the one thing that will keep them safe, being able to teach virtually. I have been told that everyone wants the schools to be open, that it is important to get the children back to normal, but we know there is no normal right now. I want to give you an example of how difficult it is to teach with students in class and students who are virtual. This is called live streaming. When a teacher is both teaching to the students in the class while at the same time teaching to the students at home, the virtual students. Trying to meet the needs of all the students is nearly impossible to achieve. And to be honest, at times, it's very defeating as a teacher. Many of our teachers do not have projectors or whiteboards, and therefore they're teaching off of this little Chromebook that's 12 by 8 while trying to keep the attention of the students that are in the building with them, in the classroom with them. Another example of how things are not normal is when the district allowed students to come back starting February 1st to in-school learning that were virtual. What that caused was a schedule change, because what it did in some subjects, such as mine in remedial, what it did was, according to my schedule, now I cannot have the mixture of students from one class coming in with another class. So my students have to get less instruction. When they were getting almost 5 days of instruction, they're down to 2 or 3 days. So when you make changes, it affects, it's a snowballing effect. And I am just here telling you about my experiences. My colleagues will certainly be able to share their experiences as well. There's representation here tonight from the high school, the middle schools, and the elementary school. In closing, I want to express upon the board that you have the lives of not just the students of EHT, but the staff. I look to you, the Board of Education, to protect and keep our staff and students as safe as possible. The responsibility is yours. Thank you.
Well, we thank you very much, Mrs. Wiseman, for that. And I would just say that we do still view you as heroes. And we thank you and appreciate everything that you do. And we are going to take a look. I have notes on these various items. Some we have more control over than others. You know that I'm not shy to reach out to policymakers, which we will do, in addition to several of the other things that you mentioned.
Mr. Castellano, may I comment on the
Yes.
vaccine? And I should have
Yes.
shared this in my my presentation. Mrs. Wiseman and I have been in communication, and this was a topic that she shared with me. And I did pick up the phone and called Mayor Hodson and asked him to work with us together if he had any connections to be able to get the vaccine, a vaccine site here at Egg Harbor Township School District. And I said I would be willing to work with him because I wanted my staff to be vaccinated as soon as possible, and also extended to him that, maybe we did a partnership with municipal staff as well. So he said he's on it. He does have some phone calls to make, some connections that he has, and he knows that I've already offered our facility to make that happen. So I wanted to follow up on that with you.
Good evening, Kevin Murphy, and I teach at the high school. I'm also one of the lead association reps at the high school and the assistant grievance chair for the district association. So I just wanted to impart some insight to you, the board, about the feelings at the high school. And right now I can say that collectively there's definitely a heightened anxiety among the staff. Given the alarming rates of COVID transmission, especially in Atlantic County and in Egg Harbor Township, many of us have kind of shifted from worrying about if we will get sick to worrying about when we will get sick. Many of our colleagues have already contracted the virus despite taking all reasonable precautions to avoid it. We are concerned about the lack of information provided to us when colleagues, especially those with whom we are in direct professional contact, fall ill with COVID. Likewise, there have been numerous occasions where students who are supposed to be quarantining show up to school or have gone on vacation and have not reported that they've traveled out of state. And these factors collectively contribute to a sense that no matter what safety measures we implement, that we face a tremendous risk when we come to work. There are certainly many arguments to be made for in-person instruction, and I think the most popular is probably that young people need social interaction, which in normal circumstances is absolutely true, but as Ms. Wazen said, and as we all know, these are not normal circumstances. Fewer and fewer students are attending in person, which seems to have created an inverse and adverse effect in terms of this social interaction. The handful of my students who are hybrid have told me how surreal and depressing being in school is, and generally speaking, that they'd rather be at home at this point. They also very much worry about getting sick themselves. In discussions with my colleagues, it has become clear that my students are not the only ones who feel this way. It is very important to consider that the hybrid model potentially puts not only students' physical health at risk, but it also compromises their mental and emotional well-being. It's obvious that there is no ideal learning environment right now. Teachers and students both have shown great resilience in adapting to the demands of the virtual and hybrid education models. And while we all know that there is no substitute for full-time in-person instruction, we need to fully recognize that the pandemic requires us to all act wisely. And at this moment, that unfortunately means sacrificing much of our collective sense of normalcy. It is not hyperbole to say that how we proceed is potentially a matter of life and death. Thank you.
We thank you very much for that, Kevin. Noted and excellent points. And you're heard. Hi.
Hi, Nicole Dempsey. I'm a teacher at Slayball Elementary. At this time, we have a common goal in striving to develop the best educational options for our students under the current circumstances. With the return to hybrid education and a time of climbing COVID numbers, we're risking the health of our students, their families, staff, and our families. Like anyone, I'm not eager to risk my health. However, if I was taking on additional risk in order to provide a truly superior education for my students, I could understand and perhaps even support that. But that's not what's occurring right now. At the elementary level, the model of hybrid instruction is not more effective than the education students were receiving when they were all virtual. Teachers have put in countless hours to become excellent at providing virtual education. The amazing strides that have been made in delivering education virtually are severely diminished when teachers are teaching virtual and in-person students simultaneously. This divided instruction, coupled with the increased health risks to all members of our community, does not equate to better education for our students. Teachers are working to attempt to make hybrid education as seamless as possible. However, there are inherent issues with the model that cannot be overcome by time and effort. We are now wearing masks while teaching students on the computer, and as you know, communicating virtually already creates communication issues, and adding masks to that situation only furthers the problem. In addition, students at home need computer-based activities, while at the same time I'm teaching students in the classroom that don't have access to a computer and therefore need different activities. If you talk with staff, you will hear that they are concerned about their health, and they feel that we returned to hybrid instruction too early and without decreasing numbers to support the move or a plan in place to help teachers get the vaccine. We're concerned that decisions are being made in response to public pressure instead of a carefully measured, data-driven decision. At this point, the decision to return to hybrid has been made, and I'm not here asking you to make that decision, to make a change to that decision at this time. But I wanted to share this information about the realities of hybrid instruction so that you'll have this information for your consideration in any future decisions. I hope that we're soon going to be able to turn this health crisis around, and that the next decision we'll be talking about making will be getting back to class full-time where we all want to be. But until then, I wanted to speak to you about our current reality. Thank you.
We thank you, and we appreciate that very much.
Hi, Maria Huba. I'm corresponding secretary for the association. I come to you tonight to share thoughts from my colleagues in my building. Everyone wants to be in school when it is safe. With numbers continuing to climb, perhaps we should have waited a little bit longer. The vaccine is here, just not close enough. Perhaps we should have waited a little bit longer. Virtual learning, although not ideal, had a better outcome than hybrid, where it is not possible to give 100% to anyone. Perhaps we should have waited a little bit longer. Another message I was asked to share is that we still have not received wipes, even after it being stated here multiple meetings ago that we would receive them. Special area teachers come to our classrooms to teach, use each teacher's mouse and keyboard, and do not bring wipes to clean because they haven't been given them. Members' lives are being put at risk because we have not been given the proper PPE. Perhaps we should have waited a little bit longer. I could go on, but I'm sure you get my point. Your staff feels that we should have waited a little bit longer, and you're prioritizing some members of the school community over your staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Susan Hinlicky, teacher at Alder Avenue and grievance chair for EHTEA. I cannot say it better than what my colleagues have just said about the concerns that our teachers have. And as a member of the middle school, I asked for feedback from teachers there about their challenges and how they feel about the delivery of their instruction during the hybrid setting, or in the hybrid setting. And they say the same thing. It is a lesser quality than when we were in virtual. Some people have expressed where you feel like you're in a circus, where you're just trying to perform, going from one spot to another. You have to set your Chromebook up with the camera facing the whiteboard so the students at home can see what you're doing, but you're on another teacher's computer over here and working to go through the slides or whatever you're presenting, and then you have students sitting out there, and then you're just trying to get some feedback from them as well. It is extremely difficult. It is not a better situation. There are things that have worked. Some of the PD has been great. We want to really thank members of our PD committee for some of the specific training on Pear Deck and how to improve our delivery in the virtual setting. Many of the parents have been terrific. The kids have been great. That's what brings us joy every day. When we see them, when we can talk to them, we can find out how they're doing, how are their families doing, and hope that everyone is okay. But there are things that, that would make the experience better for us. Overall, we do agree that the virtual setting was better. We see some students come in, and those students really appreciate it, and we love to see them. But we need more broadband. We need to increase that so that students can come in and bring their Chromebooks with them, so that we can show video clips that we might have embedded into our slides on polarity of water or something that it's not just for fun for them to see, but actual curriculum supporting material. At the middle school level, I have a podium like this that my husband built for me 20 plus years ago for teaching, that I have passed to other teachers, and was still in the building, used as a bookshelf by somebody. And I got it back. And that is what I push around to go from class to class to class to class. The core academic teachers have to move from room to room to room. So we lose valuable instructional time coming in, setting up on another teacher's computer, and then getting our Chromebook set up, and then writing everything on the board, what we're doing, and then having to do it all over again when we go to the next room. So that's where we feel like we're just like circus performers in a way, trying to do our best. And I know that it's not just the teachers that are getting comments, but secretaries are calling into schools and not secretary, parents are calling to schools because they're frustrated, but they're, maybe not being kind to those people that are just trying to help us all, the support staff. So we recognize that there are voices in the public that feel like this is not a thing. This pandemic is a flu. It's not as serious as it is. But it is that serious. And many of our parents have decided to keep their children home because they recognize it. In fact, I would say probably most of our parents have decided, at least at the older age level. So there are different things. I have things that people have said, this might make hybrid better. Let the students move around like they do in the high school. They already move for their foreign language classes. They move for their specials. So let them move for their core academics. They're really basically on a hallway on the same team. Let them do that, so we're not pushing our old or podiums around, or some kind of cart that we're finding. I can't do lab experiments or demonstrations in the English room or in other rooms, so we could at least control what we have on our board. Those are some of the things that, you know, if we continue hybrid, even in this, with these growing numbers, and I believe it's 109 tonight. So it went up from 101 earlier today to 109 right now. We would like our small group instruction in the afternoon at the middle school to be open times. We have students, they're all scheduled, so they have a specific time for their academic 1, 2, 3 through 6, and they can only go in those specific days except on Fridays that are open. But if a student needs help in math on Tuesday, but he doesn't get to see, he's not scheduled till Thursday for the small group, we think that that's not helpful. So if we could just open those up and let them be open periods for any student to come in who needs help that day, we think that would be helpful. We also would like you to look at the grading percentages. Right now we have 70-30, 70 for assessments, 30 for homework and classwork. In this time of learning, some of these kids are, you know, they're doing their best just to get their classwork and their homework done every day. Plus, they're helping their little brothers or sisters. Maybe they're helping their parents, they're making lunches. Who knows what they're doing? We don't know. But we would like to see less emphasis on those summative assessments, less emphasis on those, and have a higher percentage for their classwork and their homework that they're doing every day. And we would like to see that retroactive. Another suggestion. Just help us as teachers as we try to reach out and contact our students to find out what's going on if they've been missing school. We still want our support professionals and our administration to continue to support us with that. Please make sure the substitutes are screened well. Please make sure that they're screened well when they come in. The health screening is thorough. And please reemphasize how important it is for everyone who does not feel well, whether it's a staff member or a student, to stay home. And for parents, please call in when your child is ill, or if someone in your household has COVID, please call the schools, let us know. We all are in this together, but we all have to work together to do this. So many of you know that I came into teaching as like a second occupation. It's always been everything that I had done, even when I would just volunteer in schools to Art Goes to School, different things like that. All the things I did kind of brought me to, oh my gosh, this is really who I am. This is what I should be. I should be a teacher. You have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people like that in this district that are trying their best and come to school afraid for their husbands if they should take something home, or their parents or grandparents or children or their neighbors and their friends in our community together. So we would ask you to support us. We would ask the public to support us and try to understand again what we're going through, and understand that this pandemic is not over, and it won't be over for a while, but we will get through this year, and we will be fine, even with all of the setbacks that we have now and the limitations that we have. Your kids are going to be fine. We will love your kids. We love your kids today. We will love your kids tomorrow. That's it. Mr.
Thank you.
So there's been a couple of speakers that went up to the podium, and they've all touched the podium. Can we clean it between people that speak during comment? Because multiple people are touching the podium
The
without
wipes are there.
it being
They
cleaned.
just-
So can we just clean it? Thank you.
There's actually wipes there, Steve, they just didn't. That's okay, just.
Hi, my name is Regina Bongiorno. I'm a parent of EHT. My son is in 7th grade. I am here as a parent, extremely frustrated, as many parents are. I can't speak for everyone, but I do appreciate all of the teachers and what they've done. My son does come home every time he does go in for in-person, and he tells me, how his teachers are great and they're doing the best that they can do. But it does grow some anxiety on my end and on, the fears of his future. So I am here today to speak for that. I did have this long paragraph explaining what my fears are and what my questions are, but after hearing some of the other comments and questions, I guess my only concern is what is the expectation, the parameters and the data that we're going to base our when we can get back to in-person 5 days a week. We are, giving the, we're ensuring a head start for the generation for pre-K coming February 1st. But where does that leave the rest of our children from kindergarten through high school? Seniors are trying to go off to college, and here we are still doing everything virtually. It just, to me, it seems like we're setting the children up for failure. We can't compete in a world of other students who are going full-time in other states, other counties, and we're 100% virtual or hybrid. It just doesn't equate. No way that you look around it. I mean, if we want to lower the standards because our kids are required to do so much work, just to balance it out, and I do agree, they're doing a lot of homework and schoolwork, and then their tests are virtually, like they can look up the answers online. The teachers aren't seeing that. So it doesn't really balance out, and it's not fair, but all the parents want to come together. We want to get our kids back to in-person, but we can't do that if there's no transparency of what is the expectation? What are we waiting for? Are we going to extend this through the end of the school year into next school year, the year after that? Like, COVID's not going away. Vaccines are needed. And I do, Dr. Berruccio saying that we should have them, hopefully, they can work with us and get a site for our teachers to get vaccinated. That would be huge. But once our teachers are vaccinated, are we going to be able to go back to in-person 5 days a week? Or are we still going to push for virtual or hybrid? Because like she said, it is a circus. These teachers are taking their podiums and carts and moving them from room to room to teach for 30 minutes. The students are not really retaining what they would on a normal school day. So my question is, what are the expectations that we're looking for? Are we waiting for data to show no cases? Because to me, that doesn't seem reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And there you hear the two sides of it right there. I'm going to ask Dr. Berruccio to just respond on there's specific criteria that we need to be approaching before we can discuss, a full in-person. So I'll just ask her to answer that specific portion of it.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. As you know, the Road Back to School plan that's in place, we have to adhere to that as it's the New Jersey Department of Education's recommendations and criteria for us. We also are in touch with the New Jersey Department of Health as well as the Atlantic County Department of Health, and their data, our data, guides us to our decision making. I also announced earlier that our pandemic response team will be meeting at the end of this week, and in that meeting we will be discussing some of the questions that you just brought up. You know, let's look at our data. What data are we going to use? Where and how can we move forward with some of the ideas that parents have, administrators have, students have. I've heard from students as well. So it's time that we come together and we collaborate and we look at questions, we look at data, we consider ideas, and we see how it fits. And I've explained before, you know, many times I've been the first to throw something in a box and say, oh, this is a great idea, you know, let's do this. And then we start moving the parts around, and you bring transportation, or you bring facilities in it, or you bring finance in it, and it doesn't, it's not a fit for us, okay? So by collaborating with teachers and administrators and community members in this pandemic response team that we have, I think we'll get a good flavor of, you know, what people are thinking, people want, and then we go to the drawing board and see if it works for us. So that's where we are in terms of steps of moving forward, and I'd be glad to speak to anyone, you know, outside of the meeting. If you'd like to contact me tomorrow and, you know, we set up a meeting with my team. If you'd like to be a part of the pandemic team, let us know. Thank you.
We appreciate that. And, you know, just before we go to the phones, and of course, you know, another part of that is we have, you know, our roadback and our executive orders that are guiding us in terms of distancing. So that's a large part of that equation that's going to dictate, you know, when eventually a full-time return can happen. You know, we simply can't put, you know, people back at the density that they were before the virus. So we will go, at this point, we will go to our phone-in callers. And while Chandra goes ahead and cues that up, I'm just going to remind everyone again, questions are 3 minutes. We are going to ask for your name and address for the record. Please address your questions through the chair to me. I would like you to give your questions and comments first, and then hang up, and then we will do our best to address them. We cannot discuss personnel and litigation. And finally, if a question turns out to be very complex, we may need to get back to you with the detailed answer.
Thank you, and as a reminder, you will have a queuing system, so you do not have to keep calling back. You will just wait on hold and be answered in the order in which you called. While we wait for our first caller, would you like that internet question, Mr. Catsavano, or do you want to wait till the end?
Let's go ahead now while we're waiting.
Okay. So the name and address is Ann Cheadle at 11 Poppy Road, Egg Harbor Township. Her public comment is, why doesn't the Board of Education have an email address that public could use to send the board their questions and concerns? That's the statement of the public comment. I will just say that was sent to public comments at eht.k12.nj.us.
Okay. One more time, please.
No problem. Ann Cheadle, no problem. Ann Cheadle, 11 Poppy Road. And the public comment statement is, why doesn't the Board of Education have an email address that public could use to send the board their questions and concerns? And I said to please note, this was sent to public comment at eht.
And is that our preferred email that we want to continue with, the one that she utilized?
That is our required public comment email address while we are in this hybrid meeting phase that we advertise for public comments.
Okay, very good.
And no calls in queue yet, so we will just wait for a caller.
Can I ask a question while we're waiting?
Sure.
Is this email address just used for the meetings, or is it going to be monitored in between?
Specifically, it's for public comment portion of meetings. So they are, the deadline we advertise is, I believe, 4 p.m. on Mondays before meetings. So it's reviewed and then be part of the public comment for Tuesday to prepare, if we have to prepare an answer or give us time for that. So is it going to be monitored in between? It can be. At this time, it's set up for public comment specifically.
I kind of got the impression that this person wanted to know, like, how they would contact to ask a question anytime, not just during a board meeting.
Well, we do have the Contact Us link on our website that is utilized very often by the community members. That is monitored actually by our wonderful IT department, and they go ahead and forward it to the relevant party. If they're asking a student question, it goes to the building principal. If they're asking for anything in the business office or central office, it comes to us. So that is the Contact Us link right on the website for just general questions.
That's right on the front page
Correct.
of the website.
Mr. Castellano? So can somebody submit a question today for it to be answered for next meeting? Maybe that would clarify it. So is there, so I know that there's a deadline. I know that there's a deadline, but is there any time prior that there's a cutoff date or a cutoff time so that it could be answered? So can somebody today, right now, ask a question for next meeting?
So anybody who emails anything prior to 4 p.m. the day before would be answered at that next board meeting, yes.
Thank you.
Or they can come straight through the Contact Us
That's correct.
at any time on the webpage.
Mr. Castellano, I would just suggest that we wrap up public comment.
I'm-
and then
I'm-
further discussion.
I'm trying. Okay.
No calls.
Is there anything?
There are no calls, Mr. Castellano.
All
It's been
right.
on the website a few minutes now.
Okay, very good. All right, so that'll then, we'll move to board member comments, board members. I see Mrs. Sullivan first.
I want to comment about this responding or trying to get a response out of board members. Each board member is only one person, and we cannot give any opinions or anything until something is discussed with the whole board. My best suggestion is to go through the chain of command that we have in every school. Dr. Gruccio sends us an email every single week, the board members, with every concern that was brought up during the week. And I think that the people in the public, if you go through your chain of command through your principal, your assistant superintendent, your superintendent, it's going to get back to us immediately during the course of a week, whether there's a meeting or not. So I really suggest that any concerns the public have, that they do our chain of command, and through Dr. Gruccio and her weekly letter to us, we'll receive information.
Ms. Gilbert-Floyd next.
I was just going to add to that, because when I was sitting here, I heard the person's email question, and it sounded exactly like what Mrs. Sullivan was saying, is that some people want to know how they can personally, they want to contact a board member individually or collectively or what have you, and send information straight to a board member. Like she said, each board member is one person. We're not a board unless we're together. So, yeah, because then that will come into, yeah, we'd have many boards, and we're not supposed to do that. And I also think that, just to add to that, first, they didn't put this in their question, but, and I'm going to say, and I hope I'm not out of bounds, but even with Facebook, you know, asking questions and coming in with answers, you know, we are to direct individuals to the chain of command. So I just want to
No, I would agree, and, you know, the district is where you would go first for the answers. I see people will go on some of those happening pages and say, I have a question about the schools, and someone else will say, well, go over to this Facebook page. Well, no, you should come to the district webpage and ask us directly. I mean, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So, but other board members.
Mr. Castellano, why I happen to be here tonight?
Sure.
I'm sorry, but, so number one, I just want to say that in reference to some of the comments that were made tonight, and my stance has not changed since the last board meeting. just where I made the statement in reference to us being open. And the statement that I made was that I, was not 100%, in love with the idea of opening. I haven't hidden that, nor will I. But I do know, I'm at a crossroads because I know, children need to be in school, but I'm also concerned about safety and health. And the teachers did go from being heroes 1 minute to being hated. Not by all, but just some of the comments I've seen and statements that I've heard, and just the comments alone that are in print. It's probably is a little difficult to see some people who you may teach their children making certain statements. So I just want to say that the things that were addressed, I think the one thing that really hit home for me, hit all the points hit home for me because I'm experiencing it myself, even as a professional that works in the school system. The percentages for grading, I definitely would, that was something that I brought up before that was a concern of mine as well. Also, the fact that I just have to say this, I just don't, like one person said, I think mentioned about the pandemic, whether some people think it's real or if some people think it's not real, or if some people think it's over, blown out of proportion, whatever anyone thinks, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And this is not a normal school year. And the students are not going to experience normal education, and teachers aren't going to have the opportunity to teach in the way that they're used to. And and this is nothing I haven't said to Dr. Crucio or out in public, is the question I asked was, do we feel confident that we'll be able to open the school safely? And it was yes. So with just hearing with different things that the staff members are saying that they need, and I'm just saying this, and I'm sure that everything that we may have mentioned, I do have confidence that they'll be addressed and that they'll be, taken care of. And I just want to say that the signs that were posted in our community, and I always tell people I saw the signs and I see the signs. I saw the signs that said open up our schools. I also saw the signs of, what's going on in our community as far as with the COVID numbers. And I guess it was mentioned that public pressure was a decision, I guess was factored into the decision. And I just could say that public pressure, there could be 1,000 signs out. That's not going to make me make a decision or go along with something because of pressure, because there's pressure from every side. Everyone has their opinion about how they think it should be and what it should look like. But I guess I just want the community to know that we hear them, we hear our teachers, and we hear our students. And again, I just say that Dr. Ruscio and administrative staff, safety for the staff and students is I'm sure it's the focus of all the board members, but it is a concern for me. It always has been, it always will be, as long as we're in this situation. And I know that you're working hard to try to make this setting as appropriate and safe as possible, so that we just continue to hear what's going on and just to address the issues as we have been, and making sure that we really meet those needs.
Other board members? Mr. Price, Mr. Alvardanek, Mr. Price, Ms. Alvardanek.
Okay. All right, my turn. I wanted to thank the teachers and Ms. Wasem for coming out tonight and bringing some of these things to our attention. And there's a lot of things on here that I took notes, and I intend to follow up on as well. It's a tough situation for everybody, but I think when we communicate like we are tonight, we're making steps towards working in the right direction. And I know administration's listening, I'm listening, and hopefully maybe before the next board meeting or sooner, we can come up with some answers to these questions and concerns that you presented tonight. So that's what I would like to comment on. And again, appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Halbart is next.
Good evening. I just want to thank all the teachers for what you do. As most of you know, I am also a teacher. And I have worked with my children's teachers, and I mean, you guys have been great. And I just wanted to thank you. And just do not look at anything on Facebook, because those people's perceptions are their truth. And I tell my ninth grader that all the time. Just because you feel one way and that's your perception, doesn't mean it's going to be the perception of the person next to you. And that becomes their truth. Doesn't matter. And that's just the way it's always going to be. So just, do what you do. Do what we do as teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Allen is next.
Just a quick question for clarification. Dr. Gersher, did you want to go? Just for clarification, because it was referenced a couple times during public comments, the COVID-19 dashboard that we have on our district webpage, those are the numbers from people that became positive or confirmed positive cases. Do we have numbers from people that became positive from coming to school by any chance through contact tracing, or any of those numbers that we could highlight on there as well? Because from just looking at the dashboard, that's a lot of cases. I just wanted to know, for maybe transparency, if we can get those numbers through tracing that shows that the student or staff received or became positive through COVID, through exposure during in-person learning. So do we have that, or are those numbers that, by any chance?
Mr. Santilli monitors that data, and he can maybe speak to some of that. If not, he could get back to you with more specifics, but it's a very involved process, and I'll let him share how involved it is.
So yes, I would agree that it is certainly very involved, contact tracing. Getting into education years ago, I never thought that I'd be having this conversation about contact tracing as an educator, but here we are. So the numbers that are on the dashboard are all inclusive. So it includes staff and also students. It would also, to answer your question pointedly, it does include any tracing or cases that would have resulted in the schools. What I can tell you is that we do track that data. I don't have a number offhand. I can certainly pass that information on to the board as a whole through Dr. Gruccio, but I can tell you that that number is extremely low in regards to the data we have of positive cases that were transmitted within the schools.
Is there a reason why we can't put that on the dashboard?
Yes.
By any chance?
I've been trying to put my hands up, but I have to interject at this point. As your insurance fund commissioner, I would just caution the board to say whether or not people got it from school or not. When we do contact tracing, there's just do a very good job and interview the staff, and we can narrow down a lot of times the exposure. To say somebody got it, just to put a background of my insurance training, to say they got it from school would be a very, very high threshold, that they only went to work and only went to school and nobody else in their household went to the store or did anything else. So they are handled very sensitively, but that is not something I believe we should be putting on the website, because it's a very hard burden to prove. So we have the data. We have communicated with the staff to make sure that they have everything they need as a resource to make them whole, if you will, whether it's not charging them sick time because of the questionability. We do have processes in place, but that's not something I believe, and I could talk to Mr. Zelko about it, that we should be reporting out.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Okay, good. That's good information, and let's keep working on that. Any other board members? So, I just want to close out before I turn it over to Dr. Gruccio. I thank all of our staff for coming out tonight. All of you, you are heroes to us, and we do appreciate you, and we thank you. And we know it's our job to keep everyone safe when they're here on our watch, when you're here with us, and it's a heavy burden. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this. So please understand, we take this seriously, and we hear you. So I'll ask Dr. Guccio to close our meeting out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Castellano. Just a few things. To the Board of Education, just so you know, Mrs. Watson and I do communicate with each other, and we do have a meeting set up for Monday, which is called our SAC meeting, where the administration meets with the union, and we talk about concerns on both sides, and we always work hard to work together to make sure that things are worked out. So I am aware of some of the items that were discussed tonight, and we will be addressing them as soon as we can, and if not through the conversation that we have. I also want to reiterate the sentiments from the board that we do appreciate what our teachers do each and every day. I recognize it's not the perfect situation that teachers are in, students are in, administrators are in, board members are in. It's a struggle, it's a different struggle, but I'm so proud of the perseverance and the guts that our folks have. And as you heard some of the teachers say, we're going to make it work, do the best we can. But we are in a new year. We do look for opportunity to change. And we look for those opportunities to collaborate with folks. And just so the board knows, I send you a message each and every weekend, and I do reach out to my staff, to the teachers, and all EHT users every Monday. In my most recent message, so the board knows, I just want you to know that I appreciate your efforts each and every day as you work so very hard to embrace, engage, and educate our students. I know this has not been easy, and I encourage you all to do the very best that you can. It's very important for everyone to follow health and safety guidance that we have in place. I linked the Road Back to School plan as well as our district newsletter as I link for you and for the teachers each and every week. So I just want to share that with the board because I know you're not privy to that communication. But it sounds like we're all on the same page in terms of appreciation, recognizing different wants and needs from different perspectives and opinions. But in the end, following the criteria we have to follow. Okay. I will say I believe our schools are safe, and we will do our best to always to keep them safe and even safer. So again, conversations that we have, communications, are very, very important to make us better at what we do each and every day. So thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you all for coming out. Obviously, please stay safe and healthy, and Happy New Year to those I haven't seen. Thank you for being with us tonight. Let's keep the conversation going. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Second.
We are adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.